Rings are harder, but does that mean they're better? Does instability actually help you build more muscle and strength? I don't know. Oh wait, yeah, I do. Rings certainly feel more effective. They're going to make any movement that you do much more difficult due to their instability compared to their more stable structures like P-bars or the floor. And more muscles are recruited, leading to a perceived higher difficulty for the same thing. I like to use the dip as an example. We can look at that performed on the bars or on the rings. And when we do this on the bars, we only have to think about the up and down movement of the body. But there is a third factor introduced when we train on the rings, which is keeping them against. This will recruit more muscles, and this does overall make the dip a bit more work is done when you're using the rings because you're trying to keep the apparatus in place. The main drawbacks of the instability of rings is it's going to limit people's ability to do the work. Coaching at my gym, when people come in, and it's mainly Gen Pop, to try this new thing of gymnastics training, if rings is one of the first things that they do, find that they can't even get to trying the dip because they can't keep the rings where they need to be. The rings can actually stop you from practicing the move. If someone couldn't even hold a support position on the rings, trying to get them to do dips would be a very bad choice of exercise. You would want to reduce them to some form of more stable, using a bench or using bars and using their feet to assist. But the whole point is making it more stable so that they can actually go through the range of motion that a dip involves. Sometimes the rings can block someone's progress if the strength to a large degree is not already there. The maneuverability of the apparatus of rings can help. If someone is experiencing golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, or any wrist issues on a bar doing chin-ups or pull-ups, using the rings and the fact that they can move around based on what is more comfortable or what is more natural can actually be a service rather than a disservice to someone's training. So whilst on the most part that instability of the rings can be a disservice to someone's progress if they are lacking the strength, you can also see that it can be a great tool due to the ability of them moving around. Wow. And it can end up being a very valuable tool. But the stabilizing muscles, what about the stabilizing muscles, Tyson? You know, the ones that are here. You mean your chest? Stabilizing muscles don't exist in the way that you might have been led to believe. There's no separate muscles that are working to stabilize compared to the muscles that are already working when you're, say, on bars. It's just more accurate to describe stabilizing as a function of the muscles that we already know. Rings certainly do force you to stabilize a lot more than what you do on other setups, but there's certainly no unique muscles that appear to work just because you've grabbed a hold of rings. All the muscles are just working to stabilize rather than the caramosta is now engaged because you've held on to the rings. Your cererusta has now engaged. The instability of the rings can inhibit your ability of force output. This might not matter much at all. It could be the difference between lifting heavy and lifting very heavy. Another possible misconception is that if you train on something unstable, so if we use ring dips a lot, then our bar dip is going to be much stronger because we were training with an extra layer of complexity. So if something was harder, then when we move to the easier thing, that should be even easier. And I think there is some truth to that, but more so I think the principle of specificity is at play. And if you did want to get better at bar dips, you should do bar dips. If we were practicing our squatting on a Bosu ball, we're going to be limited in how heavy we can actually squat. We aren't going to be able to produce as much force output on the Bosu ball as we continually add weight to the barbell. If you want a better back squat on a stable surface, do more back squats on a stable surface. Ultimately, rings are an amazing tool at helping to build muscle, but I also think there are some barriers of entry at all different levels. I'm somewhat of an in-betweener where I'm not small enough to achieve and flourish with all the high-level strength skills on the rings, but I'm also not so heavy that I can't make very decent progress. That allows me to perform a lot of high-level strength skills on the rings, and these movements translate into helping me build a lot of very valuable muscle. If someone is too heavy or deconditioned to perform those moves, then they don't ever get the opportunity to train within that movement pattern and get the same benefits that I get from this rings training. Sometimes the instability of the rings needs to be a factor that we remove before we can visit the rings. In another video I made, can you get shredded doing just calisthenics? The answer is yes, but there is nuance to that answer because you can also get just as shredded using weights. I'm just gonna speak from the heart here. To me, the instability factor of the rings is just another added benefit, and I think that training on something that is so difficult does make it very effective in producing gains for people. It's just more so knowing what is the right regression or progression appropriate for you, and then embracing the difficulty of rings. The added effort of overall body tension and stabilization gets you more work per set, more work per workout, and results in an amazing physique. What is one of the hardest ring skills you are working on at the moment? For me, I am working on the elevator, which is an extremely difficult bicep curl of your own body weight. I have programs in the description that do use rings as part of the training, the Complete Physique. Get on it if you haven't already. Subscribe, guys, if you enjoyed this content and want to see more like this, and I'll see you for the next one. I use the rings for my stabilizing muscles of my carrot foster and my never nava.